So I was really excited to see Karate Kid Legends, but as the release date came closer and closer, I just started to get this really bad feeling. I'll probably never learn my lesson and just continue this unhealthy, definitionally insane habit of always being an optimist when going into every movie I see. I was going to open this video by talking about why I loved the original movies so much, or just make jokes about how Ralph Macchio is aging like the Constitution of the United States, but the truth is that it doesn't really matter because this narrative is so disconnected from all source material. Yeah, it's disconnected from the source material. Anything to do with the actual development of this creative work is shoehorned in some way. And worst of all, it's some of the most incredible false advertising I think I've ever seen. The trailer was really well done. It had the same tone as the '84 Karate Kid as well as the remake, and it just looked awesome. I remember seeing one of the trailers like months ago, and I didn't even realize it was a Karate Kid trailer, but regardless, I was sold at the time. But while the trailers tease a very dramatic and gripping story, in execution, the first two acts are a completely different story, and the tone of the movie is way too much like a late 90s, early 2000s teen rom-com. From this point forward, I will be talking spoilers, so if you want my final verdict spoiler free, skip to this time in the video. So our protagonist is Lee Fong, who's a student of Mr. Han from the 2010 remake, and it's just him and his mother, and they're moving from Beijing to New York, so he has to give up Kung Fu. At his new school, Lee meets this girl named Mia, and they hit it off right away, making her ex-boyfriend Connor jealous, so he challenges Lee to fight in the Five Boroughs Karate Tournament. Then the plot is just derailed for over half the movie. Mia's father is this guy who owns a pizza joint, and he's having trouble with these loan sharks, and for some reason that I can't really remember, he enters this boxing tournament as, I guess, a way to forgive his debt or something. So he's a boxer, and Lee, this high school kid who doesn't know how to box, but he does know Kung Fu, ends up being his coach. None of that matters because he just gets his ass beat, and it was just a huge waste of time. Either way, it was just a huge waste of time, So now we're already an hour into the movie, and usually in a 90-minute movie, this is where the story starts to get to the point, but not with this one. This is where the story starts. Mr. Han travels all the way to New York to train Lee for this tournament, but before he does, he travels all the way to California to add some nostalgia to his charm by getting Daniel LaRusso to come. Obviously, Daniel LaRusso is the original Karate Kid. Mr. Han and Daniel teach Lee Miyagi karate in like 5 minutes, and then the rest of the movie is just a messy montage of the entire Five Boroughs tournament leading up to the final where Lee eventually wins. This movie does just about everything wrong, and I mean just about everything. Starting with the story, like I said before, the first two acts are spent on this side story that has nothing to do with the original premise and hardly developed Lee's character in any successful way. I have no idea why they chose to do this. The bully of this movie, Connor, is a huge missed opportunity because every time he's on screen, those are like the only moments where the movie actually feels dramatic. But Lee only interacts with him like 2 times before they fight in the tournament, whereas in the original movies, there was so much tension building between the Karate Kid and his bully. The stakes were just non-existent in this movie. In the original movies, the consequences of the Karate Kids choosing not to fight in these tournaments were severe, and obviously that's what invested the audience, but in this movie it's all just a dick measuring competition. The most disgusting part is the way they chose to connect Mr. Miyagi and Mr. Han. My original understanding is that Mr. Han and Daniel would meet through Lee's destiny, I guess, but then I heard through the grapevine that Mr. Miyagi and Mr. Han would be connected through like ancestral ties, and either way I kind of liked it, but in reality their connection is a little bit more direct than that. Apparently 25 years before Mr. Han meets Dre Parker in the 2010 remake, he was good friends with Mr. Miyagi, who told him about Daniel LaRusso and everything. Yeah, I know, it's a little bit weird that Mr. Han never brought this up at any point to Dre Parker in the 2010 remake. And the scene where all this goes down is easily the worst scene of the entire movie. So Mr. Han just enters Mr. Miyagi's house unannounced. Daniel comes in and treats it like it's the most normal thing ever that a complete stranger just walked into his house. Mr. Han explains all this bullshit to Daniel, and easily the worst line of the entire movie is when Mr. Han says to Daniel that Lee is to him as Daniel was to Mr. Miyagi, which is just untrue. This is false. Contextually speaking, Mr. Han is lying here because Dre Parker's story is literally identical to Daniel LaRusso's story. But no, Lee is Mr. Han's greatest accomplishment. Did Dre Parker just disappear into the ether because he never shows up in this movie and he's not even mentioned, not once? And Mr. Han's character is completely different in this movie. And I don't mean like he's a changed man, because obviously he has a character arc in the 2010 movie, but in terms of his personality, he's a completely different person. In the 2010 movie, he's really quiet and reserved even when he is happy, and he was able to charm the audience without doing too much, so much so to the point that when he did have a comedic moment, it hit really hard because he's just such a serious person and he's so emotionally isolated. In Legends, he's the comic relief. He's Deadpool, while Daniel LaRusso is Wolverine. He's the one making all the jokes and having the most fun, instead of being the one in the room who's having the least fun like he would have in the original. And I mean, in a standalone movie, this would have been fine, because Jackie Chan is really funny, but this is not the time or place for this. Daniel's character is more of a cameo than anything else. He's more or less the same character he is in the original trilogy, but that's only because the writers didn't have enough runtime left to butcher his character into oblivion like they did Mr. Han. And like, I never watched Cobra Kai or anything, but I know a lot of people love that show. My dad really enjoyed it, and I did watch a lot of the major scenes in that show, just like in my research for Karate Kid Legends, and the way that they get Daniel LaRusso set up for Karate Kid Legends just feels like it ignores everything that happened in Cobra Kai, just from what I can tell. I'm not sure, I might be wrong about that. Anyways, the writers do not trust the audience one iota. The original movies showcased karate in a way that appealed to like preteens, teenagers, and young adults. That was the main target audience. But this movie treats the audience like we're 5. For example, the movie explores karate more as a strategy than a profound life lesson like the original movies, which is just a separate issue that I'll leave at that. But they're trying to strategize how Lee can beat Connor in this tournament, and they decide that they're going to set a trap for him. They spend an entire scene drilling it into our brains that that is the key to beating Connor. And then when the time clearly comes for Lee to set the trap, they do another flashback just to remind us that this is the moment that he's gonna set the trap. It's so bad how much they do this, to the point where the ending is so predictable that Ray Charles could see it coming. It's one of, if not the most railroaded storyline I think I've ever witnessed, and it really didn't have to be. The last 30 minutes of this movie should have been the entire story, but with better writers and just a little more faith put in the audience's hands. And like I said before, beyond just the story, this movie does almost everything wrong, and I'm going to really briefly run through everything, just because, full disclosure right now, this is going to be my lowest rated movie to date. And so I at least want to give my reasoning for that. One of the greater sins of this movie is the tone that they set. It's just a glorified sitcom episode. Most of the scene transitions are some shit you would see out of like Drake and Josh. The choreography of the fight scenes aren't terrible, but they're just odd a lot of the times, and the cuts between shots just don't fit together quite right in any given scene. The dialogue is not amazing, and 95% of the time it just feels inorganic. The acting is cringy and below average at best, though I think that falls more on the directors and the writers of this movie than it does the actors. The cinematography and editing contribute to the lack of continuity in the choreography and the dialogue, as well as just the general continuity of the film itself. There's a lot of unnecessary, sketched out motion graphics that really kill the vibe of a Karate Kid movie. It felt like they were just trying to make the tournament fight scenes look more like a video game, almost as though, well, first of all, they don't trust the audience, and second of all, they just didn't know how to make an evenly matched fight scene. All of these things put together just add up to a really cheesy experience where every moment feels shoehorned, and the moments that are supposed to be serious just end up feeling soulless. There's really only 2 things I can give this movie credit for. One is that it's not filmed bad. Like, the filming is just average. The color grading is just average. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't really good either. And number 2, there's really no political commentary other than one suspicious piece of dialogue where Mr. Han compares American cities to Chinese cities, but I'll just let that go because I've torn this movie apart enough. But that was Karate Kid Legends. For my final verdict, I'm going to rule against this movie at 16%, making it my lowest rated movie to date. And the crazy thing is, like, I'm not actually that pissed about it. I know I'm a little bit, like, frustrated in this video, but, like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it or anything. And I think the reason for this is that my brain just simply refuses to create any association between this movie and the source material. That's how utterly disconnected it was. Don't watch it. This movie was supposed to create like the Karate Kid cinematic universe or whatever, where it ties all of the storylines together, but it totally shits all over the 2010 remake. It completely ignores all of the events from Cobra Kai. And I mean, it doesn't really disrespect the original trilogy, but that's only because it doesn't have time to. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you enjoyed my review, please consider dropping a like and hitting subscribe, but that's all for this case. This court is adjourned.